Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar today. This is Sunny from Alibaba Cloud Security Compliance, in charge of the security compliance of the Greater China region with the focuses on technology risk and cybersecurity. With the new legislation updates on the security in China, it becomes a hot topic among MSCs again since the last wave when China's cybersecurity law took effect. Recently, we got lots of inquiries from our customers on the regulatory requirements updates, especially the topics relating to cybersecurity, data protection, cryptography, and etc. Having considered this, today we will have a series webinar on the regulatory security requirements with 3 episodes. In the first episode, we will share some insights based on the latest trend in China. You will find out the key focuses on the regulatory requirements recently in China after this episode. In the second episode, we will have a deep dive session in the classified protection of the cybersecurity, which is usually called as MLPS 2.0 overseas of this series webinar. Here is the agenda for today. Let's start from an overview on what we saw from the latest regulatory requirements changes and also the trend in China. Today we are following the same cybersecurity trend globally with similar focuses such as the security of the emerging technology, data security, protection of the critical information infrastructure, proactive cyber defense, data privacy, as well as preventive measures to avoid fines and penalties due to compliance breach. According to the latest statistic data, there was total $2.1 trillion as a result of the security and privacy breach globally in 2019, which was 4 times compared to the projected loss made in 2015. As such, it makes security as a new battlefield globally. No exception in China. To better protect the national security, society stability, and public interest, more and more information security and cybersecurity related legislation and standards were effective in the past 2 to 3 years. We can feel the frequency of the legislation and corresponding standard enactment from this slide. The China cybersecurity law in 2017 marked a new era in the security compliance in China. We saw that the security-related legislation and relevant standards were issued more frequent and faster, with the requirements defined broader and stricter. Though some of them are still in draft or consultation paper, such as privacy or data security. Subsequently, in last year, December 1st, MLPS 2.0 was ineffective to facilitate the implementation of the classified cybersecurity required under China cybersecurity law. After that, in this Jan, the China cryptography law was in effect to facilitate the data security to make the national standard adoption on the cryptography and encryption clear and concrete with law enforcement. After that, in this July, the draft data security data security law was officially introduced, though it is still in a consultation paper. From the past regulation development journey, we can feel that the data security and privacy, as well as cybersecurity, becomes more and more critical in China. And the advanced techniques are advocated to be adopted, such as IPv6 and cryptography. It is foreseen that regulation on the privacy and data security will be ineffective soon in the near future. The main objective of all these actions remain the same: to ensure the national security, society stability, and public interest. Let's move on to next section. After we understand the general security trend in China, first of all, let's take a look on the core of the cybersecurity, the China cybersecurity law, and the requirements derived from it. There are a total of 7 chapters under the law. The first chapter gives an overview of the law and with some background information associated with it. In the second chapter, it emphasized the importance and promotion of the cybersecurity. The chapter 3, 4, 5 outlines some detailed requirements such as network operation, the information protection, monitoring, and the contingency respectively. In chapter 6, the penalties and fines are clearly defined with legal liabilities to observe the law. In chapter 7, gives some the terms and definitions used in the law. The network operation security in chapter 3 starts from the general requirements for all the network operators. And after that, the requirements over the critical information infrastructure operator were defined with higher standards and additional standards. It covers the requirements on organization, people, such as the requirements on the local chief security officer, also corporate security standards, policies, also the operational process. The data security is also regulated under the chapter 3. Besides the data classification, backup, it also requires an end-to-end encryption. The network information security in chapter 4 refers to the personal information protection and internet content governance. In chapter 5, it is explicitly required that the network operator to protect the network and in an active way with some proactive monitoring mechanism to manage the threats, also establish the early warning mechanism and contingency plan. The drill tests on the plan are required to be conducted regularly. Besides, the plan and process regarding the incident reporting to authority is also required to be established and documented. Now let's take a look at some key concepts and requirements of the CSL. Bear in mind that the law is enacted from the perspective of the nation instead of single corporate. Hence, the network operator under the law is defined in a very broad way to include the network administrator, the owner, the operator, as well as the users, including both corporate and individual. And the network here also refers not only to the internet, but also intranet. The critical information infrastructure, as we mentioned just now, is also governed with a higher standard under the law. In the latest draft of the CII regulations, there are a total 17 industries have been classified as critical information infrastructure, such as finance, healthcare, transportation, and etc. The fines and penalties are also clearly defined, even inadvertently breaching the law. The fines and penalties are not only about money, confiscation of the related income, but also include the suspension of the operation for rectification, cancellation of the business license, even detention of the responsible individual. The Article 21st, the first article under Chapter 3, clearly requires the adoption of MLPS to ensure the cybersecurity, and also the cyber defense mechanism is required to be established in a proactive way with risk assessment, monitoring, contingency plans, and regular drill tests. The MLPS itself is a comprehensive system supported by a bunch of national standards. We will talk the details later in the second episode. The Article 24 in Chapter 3 requires a network operator to verify the real identity of the users before offering any internet-related services. There must be a way to verify the identity of the customer, even for the free services such as free gas Wi-Fi. The Article 47 in Chapter 4 indicates network operator shall take the accountability on any public-facing content posted by users through any channel. Say if your user posts any illegal content such as anti-government, anti-party, drugs, it will make your company into trouble. The Chapter 4, when MNCs saw personal information protection here, they may feel comfortable to handle it because they may consider to leverage their experience in handling GDPR. But unfortunately, the requirements under CSL is a bit little different from the requirements under GDPR, and the scope is also a bit different. I will talk about the details later. The data protection requirements under CSL requires a network operator to protect the data from being tampered, divulged, or damaged, or lost. Technical measures including the data identification, classification, and protection, such as encryption, by following the China cryptography law. It is required under Article 37 in Chapter 3 to return the personal data and the important data in mainland China locally. I will introduce it in the next section. In Section 3, I will share more on the regulatory requirements regarding the data security and privacy, including the requirements on the data localization and cross-border data transfer, as we mentioned just now. Based on our past experience with MNCs have the headquarters located outside China, they usually have the business need to have a cross-border data access or transfer. Under China cybersecurity law, the governance scope over the cross-border data transfer include both personal data and important data. The personal data can be further categorized into personal information and personal sensitive information. The personal information here refers to the information can be used to identify a particular natural person or the information produced by a particular natural person, such as name, ID, or a description that can be used to locate a particular individual. The sensitive information is defined from the perspective of the impact if such data is divulged or abused by a third party. For example, the health information, the disease, or the sexual orientation. Such kind of data leakage may cause reputation damage or discrimination of such individual. The important data here refers to those information that have a greater impact to the state, industry, or business. It may threaten national security, stability, or public interest if such data is divulged or lost. Enterprise and institutions may have some data that affect the overall situation of certain industry in China or even to the state. Then such kind of data will be definitely defined as important data. Another examples may include data reflecting the natural or economic and social characteristics. And also, for example, the system operation plan strategy of the critical information infrastructure that can also be considered as a critical important data. Of course, these are just some illustrative examples instead of exclusive list. The transfer scenarios here include data to be stored in an overseas system, the data to be transferred from domestic system to overseas system, or the data stored in China but can be accessed or is used to provide the services to any entities located outside mainland China. Okay, after we understand the key scenarios here, the key to decide whether the scenarios is related to cross-border data transfer or not is whether the data involves any data collected or produced in China. Please note that if the network operator that are not registered in mainland China but carry out the business in China, then it will be classified as a network operator domestically, and the network operator here need to comply with CSL's requirements. The CSL only set the governance principle. The detailed techniques standard are still not yet ineffective. Having considered the scope and scenarios of the governance under Article 37 of the CSL for cross-border data transfer, the network operator is required to have a detailed assessment before they can transfer such data outside China. Here illustrate a brief process for the assessment here. Firstly, the network operator need to assess the legitimacy, the necessity, and also whether there is any business need to transfer such data outside China. Besides, if the data to be transferred include any personal data, then the network operator is required to obtain the consent from the data subject. Also, the network operator need to have a detailed risk assessment with the assessment result endorsed formally, and also for certain industry with clearer requirements, the company need to obtain the approval from the supervisory bodies. Here are some reminders for the network operator if you need to transfer the personal data or personal sensitive information outside China. Besides the requirements we mentioned just now, the actual controls shall be in place. For example, the contract must define clearly the responsibility between the receiver and the transferor. Also, if the data is to be transferred from the receiver to any other party, a separate consent is required to be obtained from the data subject. So in general, the assessment is assessed from the perspective of the scope of the data, the security capabilities of the transfer and the receiver, as well as the legal environment of the receiver, especially from the perspective of the data security and the retrieval of the data. Bear in mind that the ultimate responsibility and accountability resides in the transferor. That means the people who collect the data and initiate the transfer. Next, let's move to the cryptography and encryption regulatory requirements. To better ensure the data security and sovereignty and promote the development of the domestic cryptography techniques, the cryptography law has been effective since this January. The law again emphasized the importance of maintaining the national security and public interest. The regulatory requirements are mainly to protect the data from the full perspective, namely the confidentiality, integrity, authenticity, and undeniable. To achieve this, the encryption techniques shall be adopted to encrypt the data both in rest and in transit, including the identity data, key material, sensitive information, communication message, and etc. And the digital signature and authentication code shall be adopted to protect the log, critical tags, and critical information to ensure the data integrity. The assessment will be mainly conducted from the 4 areas, namely the cryptography, logic, algorithm, techniques, products, and services. The cryptography algorithm adopted shall be compliant with national standards, and techniques adopted, such as protocol and keys, shall be in line with the national standards, national recognized standards. And commercial products and services offering shall be assessed by the authorized assessor, and the products must be certified by the National Qualified Assessment Center with the assessment report endorsed. The service provider must obtain the cryptography service permit issued by the state cryptographic administration. After we understand the key regulatory focuses, let's see some common questions and challenges that you may face in complying with it. Here are some common questions summarized from our past experience in dealing with MNCs with business explorers in China. First of it, given most of the MNCs have operational staff located overseas, they may commonly care how could they use a VPN legitimately. Under the most recent notice issued by MIT regarding the Internet Access Services market, the usage of VPN shall be allowed for valid internal purpose only, and only lawful usage through the legitimate VPN channel provided by an authorized provider is permitted. The second is about the policies and governance. Given lots of MNCs have their headquarters or regional headquarters located outside China, they may consider to leverage the group policy and standards to be used in China. The answer is definitely yes, but bear in mind that certain customization is required according to the China-specific standards. You can refer to some specific security requirements in China. For example, the MLPS 2.0 is a good standard for you to refer to. For cross-border data transfer, the MNCs may concern the treatment over the internal staff. Unfortunately, there is no exception or different treatment for the internal staff. The governance angle is only from the perspective of the data itself, the data category. No matter if it is a if it is a personal data or even personal sensitive data collect from the staff or the data collect from the customers, they are treated as the same. You need to follow the standard listed under the China cybersecurity law. There is no exception. The fourth one is about data security protection, especially in future when the data security law and the personal information protection law taking effect. Actually, the suggestion would be analyze and label your data from the very beginning and follow the security and privacy by design. On top of which, the encryption over the critical information and the sensitive information is always recommended. To encrypt the data and transmission channel only by using the qualified standard in China. We understand our customers' pain points, especially from the MNC's perspective, especially when all the standards in China are presented in Chinese only. As the largest cloud service provider, it is our top priority to provide the cloud products and services in line with the national legislation and standards. On top of that, we also empower our customers to provide the solutions for them to leverage to establish their own compliant architecture and framework in China. In the next session, I will briefly introduce how Alibaba Cloud Solutions can help. We have briefly mapped our solutions to address the key compliance requirements mentioned just now. For example, the network solutions such as CEN, VPN gateway, SAG, Express Connect can be leveraged in the scenario of the cross-border data transfer or data migration. The storage solutions such as OSS, database services, together with the data backup service and log service, can help you establish your local data storage with local logging solutions in China. The security solutions can be leveraged to establish your own security compliance architecture in an easier and more economic way. In the next few slides, I will briefly introduce some of these solutions. Firstly, let's take a look at the overview of the security capabilities of Alibaba Cloud. As a key in achieving continuous security compliance, Alibaba Cloud protects and empowers you with the leading security capabilities and solutions. In the latest Global Cloud Service Provider Native Security Capabilities Comparison Report issued by Gartner this year, Alibaba Cloud is ranked as a top in Asia and second in the world. The independent assessment has evaluated the cloud service provider's security from 7 security domain perspectives with 24 assessment criteria covering a scope from the infrastructure security all the way through the application security. We also have demonstrated our robust comprehensive security capabilities by protecting over 40% of website, defense over 50% of sophisticated DDoS attacks, over 6 billion attacks defense daily, serving over 1 million enterprise with all-rounded security protection, and fixing 5.76 million vulnerabilities on cloud, and timely responding to 66 emergent threats in a year. All this has confirmed Alibaba Cloud security capabilities to empower you on your own security and comply with the local security compliance requirements. We just talk a lot about cross-border data transfer, not talking about the data and qualification assessment itself for a moment. Let's focus on the network part here only. One of the key issues is to select a qualified cross-border network service provider with a good connectivity and quality. Here is just a brief illustration. You can see the globe in the center represents the Alibaba Cloud CEN, which helps you to build a reliable, faster global network. Alibaba Cloud offers you a comprehensive network solution to achieve the seamlessly and economically. We will further illustrate the cross-border network solutions with more user case and best practice in the 3rd episode. Okay, let's move on the data storage and backup by using the hybrid backup and recovery services HBR. HBR allows you to back up your applications or entire VMs or files seamlessly to cloud and allows you to restore those applications to Alibaba Cloud directly. It helps you to comply with CSL on data backup and disaster recovery related requirements. There are generally 2 key benefits of the HBR. The firstly is to allow you to establish data backup and recovery solution in China, and you can back up your data and files directly into Alibaba Cloud ECS located in China locally. And the second benefit is the data in rest by using HBR is all encrypted. It can fulfill the encryption criteria under CSL. Then let's move on to next part about the data security. So talking about data security, one of the most important technical requirements is the end-to-end encryption under both CSL and the cryptography law. Alibaba Cloud offers you the key management services, adopting the national cryptography standards to meet the requirements. The KMS is supported by a hardware-based encryption module, and then you can see that the key material will be only within the boundary of the encryption module during the whole process. It also supports a BYOK to allow you control your own key during the whole process. The encryption module of Alibaba Cloud KMS have been assessed and certified by the State Cryptography Administration. It allows you to comply with the regulatory requirements easily and economically. On top of the encryption, you also need to identify and classify your sensitive data during the whole data life cycle. So the sensitive data discovery and protection service offered by Alibaba Cloud can help you protect the data in the entire data life cycle, including both structured data and unstructured data. Any anomalies during the transmission process or shares, it will be identified and warn you proactively. It provides you an effective way to protect your data in line with what is required under CSL. In Article 21st of the CSL, it requires the network operator to retain the necessary log for a period at least for 6 months. As a log may contain any critical or sensitive information, it is critical to establish a local logging solution. So you can leverage Alibaba Cloud's log services to establish a local logging solution to collect and store logs generated through the key applications and networks in China. Alibaba Cloud's log service contains mainly 2 components. One is a log hub and the other is a log shipper. The log hub is used to collect the necessary log data, and the log shipper is used to store your logs into other storage services such as OSS. Besides, the log services can work as a single platform to integrate the logs from different sources into a single platform for you to monitor and analyze. The logs stored in log services or OSS can be encrypted and prevent from any modification or deleting. It is probably the easiest way for you to fulfill the requirements under CSL for logging. As we mentioned earlier, it is also critical for the network operator to monitor and control the content that posted through the channels to the internet-facing activities that are owned or operated by you. The companies who allow users to post public-facing content must take the full legal responsibility to the content. This means that if your user posts any illegal or sensitive politics subjects or porn content or like drugs, violence, it will make you into trouble. The civil and criminal liabilities will fall on the companies, not the individual. So you must screen your user content in a real-time basis, but it is extremely time-consuming and expensive if you conduct it manually. Content moderation automates this process and helps you to limit your liabilities in fulfilling these requirements. This is an API-based service. You can send your user content through the API. It could be the text, the video, the audio, or something like that. The content moderation will automatically screen and identify the illegal content, and it warns you when such content is detected. the illegal content will be prevented from posting. It saves you lots of effort and time for manual checking. The real name verification is an ID authentication solution which is based on Alibaba Cloud's facial recognition and big data risk management model to detect the identity. The real name verification service is a very valuable service which can help you easily fulfill the requirements under the Article 24 of the CSL to make sure the customers are the identity who they are before you provide services to them. Okay, that's the end of the first episode. For more information, feel free to visit the compliance portal on China Gateway of Alibaba.com. After a short break, we will start the second episode. So stay with us. See you later.